Hey guys, so I've been getting a lot of questions about how I improved my MCAT score, so I figured I would just make a video just to kind of explain my whole MCAT journey and my recommendations for studying. So let's get started. Here's my journey. The first time around on my MCAT, I got a 513, and then with about 8 weeks of studying, I improved it to a 521. So some things I'm going to talk about. First, I'll just talk about my MCAT journey, to kind of a breakdown on my scores and my timeline, my two different times that I applied, which can just show you kind of my difference in studying and how I got that higher score. And then kind of my three phases of how if I could go back in time and redo it, how I would have studied for the MCAT. Okay, so my MCAT journey part one. So I took this MCAT September 10th, and I took this on the last day of the season to take the MCAT. I do not recommend doing this because then if you have to retake it, you have to wait until the middle of January, and then there's a whole problem with that. But anyways, so beginning of June, I took a blueprint diagnostic test and got a 500 on that. They have a free half-length diagnostic test, and then for some reason, I made one of my biggest MCAT mistakes and read through every Kaplan book. This was a complete waste of time, did not do anything to my score. It was very passive studying, and we'll talk about that more a little bit later. I just went through the 300-page psych-social document and put everything into Anki, which I have next, Anki, and then I also did a Jack Weston CARS passage every day, because that's like kind of the most representative CARS you're going to get other than the AMC material. So that was throughout June and July, and then when August hit, I started doing third-party questions. So before I did this, I took full-length one just to kind of see where I was at, got a 508, started doing some UWorld, only did about 20% of UWorld, and then continued doing Anki, and added kind of the stuff I missed into Anki, and then took full-length 2, got a nice score increase to 512. Come like the end of August, September, I started the AMC material, went through all the material, took the rest of the full lengths, and then week of the test, I took the unscored full length, and got a 507 on it, which if you can see from my other full lengths, it was a big drop, right? Like full length 3 was a 516, dropped to 507. I was really burnt out and did not take care of my mental health, which I think was the biggest reason for that score. Week of the test, kind of reviewed stuff, did some more CARS practice, and then took my test on September 10th. And I did okay on it. I got a 513. And I think it was an exact average of all my previous full lengths, and so it was pretty expected, but I just felt like I could have done a little bit better. I think I had a lot of personal stuff happen to me that week of the MCAT, so I decided to retake it. This is my second time around. You can kind of see that my study style changed, which is probably relevant to why I got my score increase. So the first thing I did was end of January, I think it might have even been beginning of February, I took a diagnostic test just to see where I was at. I took full length 1, because I had not done any studying since the last exams, kind of to see how much studying I needed to do. Got a 514 on it, realized didn't matter if I didn't study for 6 months, because I did better than my real exam. February and March came. I was taking a decent load of classes, and so I only did one UWorld passage a day. By one passage, I mean 59 questions. And Anki, I was pretty inconsistent, but then went to Europe over spring break, and then kind of revamped my UWorld studying. And I did 2 passages a day. So I would do 2 59-question sections a day, heavily review it. And then as you can tell, my full length scores started increasing, got a 516, 518, and then 519. I think 518 was kind of my goal score. So once I got that 519, I actually pushed my test date up. I was supposed to take it in middle of May. I pushed it to end of April just because I wanted to get it over with. Finished UWorld, did the AMC material, but in that kind of 2 weeks before, same thing, got burnt out, took full length 5, dropped a ton to a 511. Was pretty depressed, took a nice little mental break the next day. This is like the week of my exam. Took the unscored full length, kind of did the score conversion, did pretty good. And then final review days, just kind of did some final review in my last 2 days, took it really chill. And then I got a 521, which was higher than any of my practice tests. It was, except for the unscored full length, but that one's kind of not super representative, so I didn't really count that. But I got a 130, 129, 131, 131. 130 was pretty expected. The 129 on my CARS was crazy because I did not do an ounce of CARS studying, but magically it increased 2 points. The bio, I was getting a 131, so that was pretty expected. And then psych-social, I actually increased a point, which I had never done. And so I don't know where that came from either, but I think kind of on test day, you're locked in and everything, so it kind of worked out. But anyways, so kind of from my experience taking the MCAT twice and getting that big score increase, here's my 3-phase plan. Phase 1, we're going to do like the unscored full length 1, UWorld, Jack Weston, psych-social document. Phase 2 is going to be mostly AMC material and the rest of full lengths. And then phase 3 is going to be just your final week of the exam, what you should be doing in your final week. Should be doing any content review, questions, kind of how to deal with that. So phase one, this one, it kind of, I mean, these like however many weeks I set is if you're really ambitious and you want to get it done in 8 weeks. But I mean, if you're, you can definitely spread this out. Like this phase can take 2 months if you want it to. Kind of depends on your commitments and everything. I had a really chill last half of my semester, so I was able to put in like 10 hours a day of studying. But I know not everyone's able to, so it just kind of depends on where you're at. But some stuff in phase one, I'm just going to start by talking about some of the materials I use and the resources. I've also included prices on here, just if you're kind of wondering if you have a budget for the MCAT, what money I would invest in it. So Jack Weston is free. So what I would do is I would do a cars passage of the day. They have a new cars passage every day and do it timed. So you get 10 minutes per passage, no less, no more. And then review missed answers. That should only take about 15 minutes. And then the psych soc document. So there's a 300-page psychology sociology document that you can find on Reddit. It's really common, it's everywhere, it's very easy to find. They have a 300-page one and a 96-page one. Regardless of what people say, you have to do the 300-page one. Pretty much everything that's in that document is fair game for the MCAT. So I would just do the long one, take the time, it's worth it. And if you are trying to do this phase in 4 weeks, you should read about 12 pages a day, and everything you don't know, put it in Anki. And then you're just going to keep reviewing it, and then that'll be a good enough psych soc review. That's all I did for psych soc pretty much, except for UWorld, which I'll get into right now. And then UWorld, so these are the prices for UWorld I have just written after it. I think I did the one for 180 days. But regardless, they all have the same material on it. It's just you get a longer amount of time for it and you can reset it. So what I would do personally, and this will take about 3 hours a day, is do 2 sections of UWorld a day. And when I say sections, I do full sections, so 59 questions. And I would filter between the chem phys sections. And then the subjects put in this one is like chemistry, organic chemistry, physics. So if you've never used UWorld before, it lets you choose like the subjects you want to get tested on. And so I would kind of split them up into the categories of the MCAT. So the chem phys section using chemistry, OChem, physics, the bio section using biology and biochemistry, and then the psych soc section using behavioral science. I personally did not use CARS from UWorld because it was really hard and not very representative. But I mean, you still can, it's still good practice. I think it's just kind of, I was a little bit short on time and I just kind of didn't really want to do CARS. And then also people are always asking me like, should I time myself on UWorld? I didn't. I was cautious of my time. I would look at it and I would try not to exceed time horrendously, but because UWorld is quite a bit harder and the questions require a couple extra steps than AMC does, it's not super necessary to time it, but definitely be cautious of your time. So try to keep it lower. And then reviewing UWorld, I think that's the most important part. I would review every question I missed, even the questions I got right. And if I was unsure about a question, if I kind of guessed on it or I missed it, it went right into Anki. So I would keep reviewing that every day. And if you're really motivated, which I wasn't, but if I was, I would do this. You can have a notebook where you can write out why you missed certain questions, which was super helpful. And then in the top right corner, I have just an example of what one of my Anki cards look like. So the good thing about UWorld is if you're using it on a computer, you can just screenshot it. And so I would screenshot little tables as shown here, or graphs or charts. They have a lot of cool information, and add it to my Anki cards. And then just kind of I wasn't so sure about the hormones that are released with preganglionic and postganglionic neurons. And so I added that to a sheet. And then kind of at the bottom, I'm just going to talk about in the bottom right corner, just some of the, just kind of the timeline. So if you're doing this stuff every day, you should be able to finish it in 4 weeks, even a little bit less. But what I would recommend doing is before you even start studying is take the sample full length. That one's free, so you don't need to buy the AMC bundle yet. But don't really review it. When I say no review, I mean you can kind of look over it, but don't really go in depth because you're going to be taking that again towards the end. Take the sample full length. That gives you a good idea of what the AMC questions are like, and gives you kind of a better place to start your actual studying. And then you're gonna do all the stuff I talked about, like the UWorld. And once you finish all of UWorld, you could take full length 1, and then do a full review of that. So you take the full length 1 day and really, really take the exam. So mimic testing conditions, be in a quiet environment. Don't be Googling any answers, nothing like that. Just take the full length as it is, and then the next day review it and add things you don't know into Anki. Okay, phase 2 is kind of getting into the AAMC stuff. Once again, I say 3 weeks. This is if you're pretty ambitious, but you can kind of spread this out however you want. This is just how I did the exams. Some people like to do full lengths earlier on. I found them most helpful at the end because I never really struggled that much with stamina. But if you're struggling with testing stamina, then I would recommend kind of maybe pushing some of these full lengths that I have written a little bit into like the phase 1 of studying. So for this one, you need the AAMC bundle, and that's $294. This one is mandatory. You have to get it. You have to pay for it. There's kind of no getting away around this one. And same with UWorld. I also think that there's no getting away with that one. You kind of have to buy it. So save up your money. Those are the two things you need to definitely spend money on. Then obviously your test. So the AAMC material, this is kind of the order I did them in. So there's in cars, they have 419 questions about cars, which comes to 71 passages, super random number, but if you are doing phase 2 in 3 weeks, then you'll have to do about 4 passages every day, and this one's you have to do timed. So give yourself 40 minutes, go through all 4 passages, and then kind of go over the questions you missed. But yeah, make sure those are timed and just do those every day. That should be just kind of you wake up in the morning, you do 4 cars passages. And then the question pack, so there's 480 questions in the question packs. They go over the 4 subjects. There's 2 for biology, 1 for physics, 1 for chemistry. And these are questions from the old MCAT, so they're not representative, but they're good for content review. No need to time them because they're not representative of what the new exam is like. But you can probably do these in 4 days and mix the subjects. So do like a fourth of each question pack every day for 4 days. And then once again, add things to Anki if you don't know it, so you can keep reviewing that. And then I would recommend taking full length 2 and reviewing it. This takes 2 days, right? You take the full length, then you review it. Add stuff you don't know to Anki. Next are the independent questions, formerly called the flashcards. There's 150 questions of these. Once again, not very representative of the real MCAT, but they have good concepts and good content review. And once again, you don't really need to time these ones because it's not representative at all. And then the official guide, these questions I found them pretty representative of the MCAT. They might even be a little bit harder, but it kind of functions as like a half-length MCAT, so they just have 30 questions from each section. And so you can do this in 1 day, definitely time yourself on this one, give yourself half the amount of time that you'd be given on the real MCAT. And then after these 2 things, I would take full length 3 and review it, just to kind of get in that process of doing full lengths. The next material I'm going to talk about, which I would say for the end, because it is the best material, even better than the full lengths, I would say, is the section banks. There's 300 questions, 100 questions in Chem Phys, 100 in Bio, 100 in Psych Soc. They're honestly a little bit more difficult than the real MCAT questions, but they're really, really good at really internalizing these passages and understanding kind of what's going on in these experiments that you're going to hear about on the MCAT. Definitely time yourself on these, but I always kind of gave myself an extra 5 minutes or so just because they are a little bit harder and I cared more about learning this stuff than the time. Never was that stressed on time. But if you are stressed on time, definitely time these ones. You can do this in 3 days. I would do a third of each question pack a day. And if you want to do any of the material twice, and if you have the time to and the motivation to, section bank is what you should be doing twice. And then I would take full length 4 and review it, and then full length 5 and review it. And I just kind of, on this cute little heartbeat, I made kind of the plan of how you should, like the timeline of this. So question packs should take 4 days, full length 2, 2 days, independent question and the official guide 2 days, full length 3, 2 days, section bank 3 days, full length 4, 2 days, and full length 5. I wrote 3 days. I don't know why, but it should be 2 days. Okay, and then phase 3 should take 1 week. And this is kind of your final review. Oh, and I totally forgot to mention on the rest of these, you should definitely give yourself a rest day. So I kind of did Sundays as my rest day. I think for all of the phases, the amount of weeks I put in for it allows you to have a rest day a week. So the first thing I did when I was in phase 3 was I took the unscored full length, again, the one that we took at the beginning. You're not going to remember any of the answers. Don't worry about that, especially if you didn't review it very hard. And then do some minor reviews the next day. I mean, obviously there's not much you're going to learn in your final week of your MCAT, but you can kind of minorly review it. Maybe don't add things to Anki if you don't want to, but you could add things to Anki and kind of just go over the exam. But the unscored full length is by far the easiest one. So this one was kind of like a little confidence boost for me because when I took it my second time, full length 5 kind of hit me. I got a 511 on it, and then I took the unscored full length, got a 522. So it was definitely the confidence boost I needed, because if I would have gone into the MCAT with my most recent full length being that low, I probably would not have done as well. And then I recommend buying the Kaplan quick sheets and take notes on it. So I did this for 2 days. But what you're going to be doing is just reading over the quick sheets. It's like 25 pages, really, really, really like small text. So it kind of seems longer than that, but pretty much has everything you need to know for the MCAT. So it's just kind of a good review at the end. And then I took notes on stuff I didn't know, kind of made sure to review those notes later. But with the Kaplan quick sheets, a lot of people also buy the Kaplan books. I would recommend having them. They're, I think, a couple $100s. You can buy them on Amazon. It's not a horrible price. But if you are really, really struggling in a concept and your world is just not doing it for you, then you can go back to the books. But I do not recommend starting off with the Kaplan books. There's also a lot of resources online. A lot of people like the Khan Academy videos. And then the Shamasian, I don't know how to pronounce it, consulting. They have pretty good stuff online of content review. There's a lot of information out there, but the Kaplan books, I think, do a pretty decent job. I just would not cold read them. Only read them if you are like really struggling on questions, let's say in like electrochemistry or something. Then you can go back to that section of the book. And then also, so that's what I did. So unscored fulling, take 2 days for that. Kaplan quick sheets, 2 days for that. And then from the Kaplan quick sheets, if there were stuff I didn't really know, like I was really kind of struggling with my biochemical pathways, I just did not take the time to memorize them. I would go over those from Kaplan. And so I think I did glycolysis, gluconeogenesis, pentose phosphate pathway, amino acids. Yeah, I didn't really know my amino acids till last minute, which is not great because there's so many questions on amino acids. Electron transport chain, physics equations, muscle contraction, immune cells, fatty acid oxidation and synthesis. I think I forgot to add citric acid cycle to this, but I also went over the citric acid cycle. So just kind of stuff you're not super familiar on. If there's something in the MCAT quick sheets that you cannot just recite off the top of your head, go over that. And I just went to the library, got a whiteboard, drew out these pathways beginning to end, every enzyme, every structure, everything. Went to them and did this like 10 times. So these really need to be ingrained in your head. And if you're like me and can kind of learn stuff last minute, this is great. But otherwise, I would probably start doing that a little bit earlier. Then the day before, I would definitely relax. I think the day before, I just went over the biochemical pathways one more time. I think I really quickly went through my notes on the quick sheets, but I stopped studying at like 3 p.m., I think, and then just kind of relaxed the rest of the day. And then just was really relaxed and slept well before the MCAT, ate a good breakfast, everything that you've been hearing probably your whole life about studying. So that's kind of how I studied for the MCAT. I know, once again, my method probably won't work for everyone. I think one thing that I would really want to emphasize is this active studying instead of passive studying. This kind of means like you're doing questions early on. You're really like, trying to apply the material, not just read it. Because you read the Kaplan books and you're like, great, you understand it, but you understand it until you read the next passage. You're not really ingraining that information into your head. So I would really recommend starting off with questions as early as you can. It's okay to buy the Kaplan book. It's okay to buy supplemental material, but use that as a supplement. So if you're just continuously missing questions in something that you just completely didn't learn, then read it. Maybe you haven't taken physiology yet in school. Maybe then you can read the bio textbook, the bio book for physiology. But I would never use it as just kind of like, let me just read every textbook. That wastes a lot of time and you're not going to be seeing the same score increases that you would be if you had started off with like really, really active studying. So started off with UWorld, gotten into the AMC material, the Jack Weston cars, all that stuff is going to help you a lot more than just kind of, reading through a textbook. But once again, my method probably won't work for everyone, but it worked for me. I got a pretty big score increase. And yeah, I hope this video helps you.